Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
There are already two persons in the waiting room, which is, I think it's a good sign of.
I noticed that. I was like, first I was like, is that Agata when I first came in? Because
No,
somebody was
no,
here
it's
before
not
me. Yeah.
Tagada. Okay, so what do we need to review before we start? You start.
So I just put together a little bit of a script for myself,
Okay.
just to kind of make sure that I don't forget anything. So let's look. Um, oh, I need to rename myself. All right, let's start with that. It's the first thing on my list.
Oh yeah, me too. Okay, this is rename.
There we go. Okay.
Okay,
Um, check that the recording is on. Check.
yes.
Uh, let me just confirm the poll.
Okay,
Polls and quizzes. Let's just
yes,
make you're there, you're there.
yes.
Delightful. Uh, wallpaper's good. I made a little checklist, by the way, from our conversation this morning, which
Great,
I'll,
I love that. I used to have one, but
yeah,
it's not updated. So perfect if you can share or we
yeah,
add to
I will. It's a
every
mess at the moment. It'll work for me,
love
but I
that.
will clean it
Please
up.
write into me now. Dane. Okay. Okay.
Um,
So okay, Paul ready.
poll
Q&A
ready,
ready. I
Q&A
can see
ready. I can see it
recording
too.
going, renamed. So
We'll do a tech check with Jill and Michael when they get here.
yes, but they will not share a screen, so there's
Yeah,
no.
I just want to
Okay,
confirm
one thing
that.
I do
Yeah.
that you can do or don't is I go to participants more
Mm,
and then I check mute all upon entry.
okay.
And also I uncheck allow participants to unmute themselves.
Uh, mute all upon entry. And you uncheck allow participants to unmute
Yes,
themselves.
during the recording, okay?
Okay.
Because it avoids people, uh, unmuting by mistake. So you have,
Hmm.
interruptions to the presentation. Once I stop the recording, I uncheck that and I allow people to unmute themselves.
Okay. I'm
But it
just
has
making a
helped
note.
a lot in keeping the presentation nicer. Okay.
Okay, so let me just make a note. Um, all right. So we'll talk about after. Okay, so we'll quick tech check.
I can
Oh,
do today the unmuting people. When you press recording stop, I
uh,
can unmute people. Okay.
okay. Yeah. Okay, so then I'll do, so once
Yes.
we open, right, at 2 minutes
Yes.
to, hopefully, I'll do a quick welcome.
Yes.
I'm
And
gonna
invite people to introduce themselves.
I'm gonna introduce myself as the newest member of the
Yes.
Innovate US team,
Perfect. And
and then
also
I'm,
say people, hey, we'd love to know who you are, where you come
yeah,
from, etc. And you launch the poll. Okay.
yeah, I'm just gonna walk you through what I have because um, I thought there was a bunch of housekeeping stuff that needs to happen too.
Oh, yes, but I usually keep the poll ongoing while people join in
Okay.
because I mean it gives them more time because it's just 3 questions. So they rename and they can complete the poll if they want. And then
Okay.
you do the official welcome, housekeeping, etc.
Okay, so in terms of housekeeping, uh, why do they have to rename themselves? Remind me,
Okay,
it's
I will show later when you see the list of participants.
no,
It's
but just tell me what message I need to get. I think it's something about the attendance certificate.
because the name that they use to join the session
Yeah.
is the name that the system will take to issue the certificate of attendance.
Okay. All right, so they just
So
need to make make sure it's
Sure,
correct,
it's, I mean,
right?
if they want to receive their attention and everybody wants, they need to
No.
make sure that the name,
Yep.
there's name, surname.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
So rename yourself, use the chat to
Because,
introduce yourself, explain the session. We'll have 35 or 40 minutes of conversation, followed by 15 to 20 for Q&A. The
yes,
conversation portion will be recorded, the Q&A will not. Speaking of the Q&A, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to post any questions that you'd like the presenters to address during the Q&A portion. Please use the chat for conversation. Then we post the real-time translation.
not for this one, but you can
Okay.
tell everybody, you can turn on, for those who need it, you can turn on closed captions. You will find the option at the bottom of the screen. It's a CC button there. Because I mean, it's good in terms of accessibility, because if some people have like hearing impairments or that kind of things, they can turn off CC if they want. But if not, don't mention it. Okay, people know.
Oh, wait, don't mention what?
No, if you prefer not to mention, it's okay.
No, I'm good with mentioning
Okay,
it. So for
perfect.
those
Okay,
who want or need it, you can turn on closed
on
captions available at
captions,
the bottom of the screen with the CC symbol.
that symbol, yeah.
Okay, so no real-time translation.
Yes, they can do that if they want. I mean, this is available. I will post, I can pass the, we have this. Okay, now I have my CC, or you did? I did. Okay, so
I'm
um,
I'm confused. What did you just?
I press the button just to check.
Oh, oh, the transcription.
Yes, I
Oh,
checked because
okay.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah,
make sure
yeah,
it
yeah.
was working. It was working.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
sorry.
No worries.
No, it's okay. Just mention that because we are using the translated for the democratic engagement one. Okay.
Okay.
For now, just keep that simple.
So I'm not going to talk about real-time translation.
No, not now. If
Okay.
someone asks, I will answer into the chat. Okay.
Okay. And then at that point,
Mhm.
do I need to describe the topic and the
No,
learning
you
goals for
don't.
today? Oh,
You
I didn't
turn
think so.
over to Jim.
Turn it over to Jill. And how do we typically introduce Jill? I was going to introduce her as the former managing and executive editor at the New York Times and a distinguished professor of the practice for the Burns Center.
And first of all, who is the co-curator of this series?
Aha. All right.
Yeah.
I will have already explained the Amplify series above, so I'm just going to refer to it. Okay. Do we put speaker bios in the chat?
I usually yes, but
Okay.
not in this case because I only can link to Michael's. I can link to Michael's bio in the New York Times because this is what I have.
Oh, I just pulled the text that we had in Zoom.
Perfect. So you just copy and paste, and I will add the link to Headways. Okay.
Okay.
If they want to learn more about the project, the Headways project, because they probably will do.
Okay. So
I will.
after the conversation, then we turn off the recording
Mhm.
and
I will
allow to
unmute
unmute.
you. Yeah,
Okay.
or you can do it. It's okay. And
And then just a quick thank you at the end to Jill and Michael, to all participants.
mention that we are meeting again on
Next
December.
Tuesday. Now, do you want me to announce anything beyond that?
No, because that's the only thing, and we are there
Okay.
getting the complete information by email.
Okay.
The only thing we can say. Oh, here, Jill.
Awesome.
Okay, so if you don't need me, I will say quick hi. Hi, Jill.
Hi.
So happy to have you here. So I am going to be in the session, but back end. So I will turn off my camera. So this is Eileen's show today, Eileen's and Jill. Okay, I'm here in any case.
Awesome.
It's
Thank you,
nice to
Agatha.
see you.
Right.
How are you, Jill?
I'm good.
Good. Excellent. Well, your audio and your video are excellent. So tech check. done. And Michael will join shortly. So any questions you have for me for
About
today?
how many folks are you expecting?
So we currently have, let's look. Oh, um, how many do we have registered for today? I'm just getting there. We have lots and lots registered, so over 600 registered, but that's series registration.
Okay.
For the past ones, we've had for
150, I
Amplify,
would
yeah,
say.
I was going to say somewhere between 100 and 200 people. We already have 2 people in the waiting room. They're early
Eager
birds.
beavers.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yes.
looking for a place to actually plug in my computer because I don't want to lose juice.
Yeah, I just did the same thing.
Hmm. Let me just try to re-plug it in. Okay, I'm good.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah, we wouldn't want you to lose juice. That would not be good. So I'm assuming today this is more of a conversation between you and Michael, no
And we're
slides.
happy to take questions.
Yeah. Yeah, usually what we do is about 35 to 40 minutes
Right.
conversation and then 15 to 20 at the end Q&A. We have the Q&A enabled, the Q&A feature on the webinar. So we're going to ask folks to put their questions in there. Would you
And
prefer to moderate the Q&A, or at the end, do you want me to
no,
pick some questions for you?
that would be great.
Okay, we can definitely do that. I see Michael has joined. Hi, Michael. Good to meet
Hi,
you.
Michael.
We don't have sound for you. There we go.
You hear me now?
Can hear you now. Excellent.
Good to see you, Jill.
Lovely to see you. I wish it was in person.
Me too, although not today because I'm suffering a terrible cold.
Oh, no.
So yeah, I know.
Oh, I'm
You probably
sorry
can
you
hear me
have to
because
do this.
that's okay. And I also had to, today's a teaching day. I did my seminar at Columbia. So
What
I'm
are
going,
you teaching?
I I teach at the architecture school at GSAP, and I'm doing a seminar on Lower Manhattan
Oh,
Oh,
fun.
and climate
I
issues.
live there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice, but wow, am I really foggy? So I'll do the best I can.
Okay, I'm not at all worried.
Yes, I think it'll be fine. How many kids are in the class?
Uh, a lot.
We're thinking maybe about 150.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah.
That's quite a few.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll give you so we won't know until they all get here. We have about over 600 registered, but usually that's not realistic for who shows up. So
Jesus.
quite popular. Yeah.
So, well, I'm not surprised. Well, that sounds amazing. Okay, and then we'll talk for a bit and then open it up to questions. Is that the way you want to do it?
Yeah, we were just talking about that. So we'll do the first 30 or 40 minutes as a conversation between you and Jill, and then we'll be having folks put their questions in the Q&A. And I will, depending on how many we get, either just ask those to you or try and synthesize them a bit into some thematic questions. And the last 15 to 20 minutes will
And do you
be done that
introduce
way.
us or
So, Jill, question for you. I was going to introduce you and
okay,
allow you to introduce Michael.
sure.
Okay. All right. That works. And
That sounds
then,
And can I ask, so who are these kids? The 600 is a lot, so in
They're
brief.
local and state officials. Like
Oh, oh, they're not kids at all.
they aren't
oh,
kids, but they're they tend to be young.
Got it.
This is
Oh, okay.
something that Northeastern is doing through the Burns Center for Social Change, which
Oh, fantastic.
where I work half-time. So no,
Got
this
it.
isn't, just a class, but it's a program that these state and local officials have, signed up for to, help them learn sort of how reporters think, how to
Fantastic.
tell their stories better. Uh, in ones I'm not leading, they're learning about how to use AI in smarter
Right.
ways. They're
That sounds
very
great.
interested in that. So,
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Oh, so that's really wonderful. That's great.
okay.
Yeah, it's a public servant
Right.
audience, mostly state and local.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jill,
And
I'm
And
it
going
will
to,
get you some ideas.
right. Exactly. I'm going to be in London for a few months. I'm a fellow at the LSE, so
Oh, how
I'm going to
fantastic.
sneak away from the Times for a bit, work on a few stories, but mostly be
Well,
there.
I may be over there
Oh,
during your
great.
tenure, so maybe we can get together there.
Definitely.
When,
Yeah.
from when to when?
Mid-late January through April.
Lovely.
Yeah. Well, not the ideal months to be in London.
No,
It'd be
but
great. So I'm looking forward to it. And, we're empty nesters now. So
uh,
we have for the first time, at least the option
to travel,
to
right?
travel. So I took that first opportunity to do it.
That's great.
Yeah, the guy who runs LSE is a man named Larry Kramer. Did you ever come across Larry?
Yes,
Yeah, he used to run Stanford Law School and then the dean and then
right. I know I've
ran
done
Hewlett.
programs for him,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah. He's terrific. So, all right. So then it's all online. Obviously, there's no classrooms.
Right.
You just wait for
Eileen
enough of
is
them
going to
to.
moderate you're going to choose the questions or do you read them to me or do the people ask them?
so we usually allow both.
Okay.
So we'll have collected some questions in the Q&A. And so depending on how many we have of those, if we have a ton, then I'll try and synthesize those a little bit. If not, I'll just ask them to you. And then we can also open it up for folks to raise their hand and come off mute at that point
Okay.
too.
And will you do that
Yeah, of
part?
course. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sounds
During the conversation part, folks will all be muted. They can't unmute themselves, but once we turn it over to the Q&A part, we will stop the recording so that their questions won't be part of the publicly available recorded session
you don't.
and allow them to come off mute.
Yeah, you don't want their questions recorded. I don't care, but I'm just asking.
We find that it actually sort of helps with sort of freedom
Uh-huh.
of questions if they know that they won't be part of the publicly available recorded session.
Yeah,
So that's why we do it.
excellent.
Yeah, just get some more get some more questions going and maybe some honest questions that they don't want recorded for
Yeah,
posterity as government employees.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, where are you living up there?
I live in Charlestown, the
Oh, nice.
oldest part of Boston.
Yeah, that's so nice. I
And
mean,
I'm there because I live with my surgeon daughter and surgeon son-in-law who are never home and their two kids.
wow, that's kind of lovely.
Yeah, I've been doing it for, close to 10 years.
I know, but I know you've told this to me, but because we haven't had a chance to get together much here. You have no place here now?
I do,
That's
but
what I thought.
my son Will and his wife and their 3-year-old, my third grandchildren, are living in our Tribeca loft.
Got it. Okay.
So everyone is where they shouldn't be, except for my husband Henry, who's at our house in Connecticut,
Okay.
where we had Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's nice. Where in Connecticut?
Madison, Connecticut.
Oh, that's pretty. I know it slightly. Oh, that's wonderful. Was it good?
Yeah, it was fun. How about yours?
We had a motley dozen people in our over, which is deceptive because our apartment is barely large enough to hold 12 people. But we've done this many times before, so it was nice. Yeah, it was nice. Our older son is at law school, so he couldn't, he's one
Ah,
L, so he couldn't come home. But his girlfriend was here, and our other son came, and then just a bunch of different random friends and sort of
where is he now, the younger one?
the younger one is at Hopkins, and the older one is at Duke Law. They're both doing okay, I think. I mean, the younger one, to be honest, is he's doing extremely well academically,
Mhm.
but he hasn't really found his people because he's not doing STEM stuff.
Right. But they have a fantastic humanities program and writing
No, I
program.
mean it's wonderful. And it's just he's shy. And so it's hard, it's hard. It's just everyone around him, all of his roommates, everyone in his dorm are doing they're pre-med or doing public health or something. So I think it's taking him a little time. He's not unhappy exactly. He's just not fully ensconced. The other one, the older one, you can imagine, Duke Law, he barely comes up for air ever.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. He's obviously
My surgeon son-in-law and his twin both went to Duke as undergrads.
oh yeah. I mean it's a pretty campus. I actually only went that one time
Mhm.
to
It's beautiful. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a beautiful campus. I hate to interrupt this.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Because as much as I too once went to law school,
Oh,
not Duke Law School, but once upon a
excellent.
time in a former life, I
Yeah.
was a lawyer.
All right.
But I want to get us. I'm going to go ahead and open us up and get us started.
Now, Michael, you were once Italy correspondent, yes?
I no, well, I was in Berlin.
Okay,
Yeah,
Berlin. I knew I had that
for
wrong.
about 5 years. Yeah, and I was covering things all across Europe and the Middle East, really. So I was based in Berlin. I spent a lot of time in Italy and did a lot of work there, but no.
Right. I thought Italy because of our shared
Yeah,
love.
it's true.
Mm,
Summers, exactly.
that would be quite the post. All
Yeah,
right, I'm going to go ahead and get us open. Thank
sounds
you both.
good.
All right. Welcome, everyone. As folks are filing in, I want to welcome you all. Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Twiggs, and I have recently joined the Innovate US team. I'm super excited to welcome you today to the fourth session in our Amplify series for mastering public communication in the AI age. This series is offered in partnership with the Burns Center for Social Change and Northeastern University. Before I turn the session over to our co-curator and moderator for today, Jill Abramson, I want to go over a few housekeeping details. So first, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll, a little pre-workshop poll for you. And as we're going over housekeeping rules, I want you to go ahead and fill out that poll for me. Now, couple of notes. First thing I want you to know is that the attendance certificate that you receive today will reflect the name that you've entered with. So if you want a different name on your attendance certificate, please go ahead and rename yourself now. You can also jump on into the chat, as I see some of you are already doing, and introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from. Today's session is going to be for 60 minutes, the first 35 to 40 of which will be a conversation between Jill Abramson and Michael Kimmelman, and then we will have about 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A towards the end. We will be recording the conversation portion of today's program, but not the Q&A. Speaking of the Q&A, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to post questions for the presenters. I will go ahead and moderate that session, that portion of the session when we get there, but continue to use the chat for conversation. But if you have a question that you want to pose, please put it into the Q&A. If you need it or would like it, you can turn on closed captions, which is available at the bottom of your screen where the little CC symbol is. And we are going to go ahead and then turn it over to Jill. So Jill Abramson is our co-curator of the Amplify series. She is the former managing and executive editor at the New York Times and also a distinguished professor of the practice and senior fellow at the Burns Center, leading our initiative on investigative solutions for journalism. We'll go ahead and post, and Jill's going to introduce Michael. So with no further ado, I will turn it over to you, Jill.
Great. Thank you, Eileen. I'll be chatting today with Michael Kimmelman, who was, if not my very favorite colleague at the New York Times, way up there in the top three. And when we met, he was covering culture, and he was the Times' art critic, then architecture critic. He wrote a great book about art, and then he wanted to spread his wings, and he became a European correspondent based in Berlin, covering all matter of issues, including cultural events. And late in life, after I was gone from the Times, but very much stayed in touch with Michael, we discovered that we shared an interest in something that is actually called solutions journalism. We both thought that so much of the news, and especially investigative stories, which is my specialty, were so negative and bleak. They were always about these terrible problems and rarely sort of delved into whether anyone was doing anything about these problems. And often, the people who find solutions to society's most nettlesome problems are you guys in the audience, especially state and local officials who are closer to the people than any of the lawmakers in Washington. And so Michael started a group at the New York Times called Headway, and I'm going to have him tell you about how he started it and why he started it, and what he wants to accomplish with it and what he has accomplished with it.
Thank you, Jill, and it's wonderful to see you. And I'm glad I made the top three. So, and hi everybody. Yeah, I started Headway in part because it grew out of a project that I had done really with the Foreign Desk and what was then the nascent Climate Desk, which was to talk about global cities and climate change, and to sort of try to find a way to talk about climate that wasn't just about rising seas, but about practically what impact it was having on daily lives and people in different parts of the world. And as I was doing that, I was in touch with a lot of organizations, many of them NGOs, but also governments in cities around the world, to ask them about what problems they were trying to address, how they felt climate worked in their communities and their cities. And I was seeing that there were a lot of people who were addressing problems, not just identifying them. And the Times at one point contemplated doing what's called a cities vertical, which was basically a way of aggregating all of our things around urban coverage. Um, and that didn't really work, and the approach wasn't quite what I personally was interested in. But I went back to some of these people, and I thought, would you think that there's a place for a kind of coverage that um, we are not doing at the Times, and it's kind of hard to, at that point, still hard for me to identify. Um, and out of that grew this idea, which actually took a few years to evolve. I never really called it solutions journalism. And the reason I didn't was partly out of ignorance about solutions journalism as it then existed. But also, I think I thought that the problem with solutions as a goal was that often problems are not, they don't have a solution and then it's over. What, especially in the nature of cities, and I'm sure everybody on this call understands this, problems are constantly evolving. Cities are organic. There's always the works in progress. And what's today's solution is often tomorrow's problem. What I felt was crucial was opening up a public conversation around approaches to problems, obstacles to progress, um, and that if we just called them solutions, it was going to turn off a lot of people, and they'd say, "Well, that's not going to work here," or that, you know. So I say that as a preamble because there was in my mind more an approach toward reporting than a specific goal to do a solutions-based journalism. Uh, I'll give you one example. I've been talking to people about homelessness for some years, and many of them worked in places and with organizations that kept telling me homelessness is a crisis that we can address. It was never what I was reading in the paper. And so one of the early projects for Headway was to sort of unpack how at least one city, in that case Houston, was able to reduce its homeless count by really over two-thirds. And I thought that was important, not just to spread a little good news, but also to talk about how change happens, sort of systemic change, how that's organizationally happening, civic engagement wise, how that happens. Because as you also know, Jill, so much of what we do is based around character, a crisis, certain forms of narrative that fit into journalistic templates. That's often not the best way
Right.
to talk
And
about
my
the problem.
template was always what's been called since the muckraking era, Teddy Roosevelt, the journalism of exposure.
Right, right. Which is, look, I mean, uh, journalism, that is maybe its prime function, right? To become the conduit for exposing and revealing things which people need to know to be good citizens and to act. And that includes scandal and crisis. But I think also, we've entered a period when the economy, the nature of the way media is produced and shared, all of this um, sort of leans into this, not just muckraking, but it's a certain kind of maintenance of a condition of crisis. And one of the effects of that, I think, is to turn people off, uh, not just to journalism, but towards addressing these problems. So I think this idea of trying to create a lane that addresses problems and the ways in which they can or cannot be changed, moved, um, is very critical now and very difficult. It's difficult to find that space. Solutions journalism sometimes is we built a bike lane in Des Moines, isn't that great? That as if that's the thing, and those things can be very effective. But to talk, as I was saying earlier, about systemic change, to get at some of the root causes of The problem it's tricky. It's tricky to tell those stories in interesting ways, and one of the other functions of
Also
journalism is to engage
tricky, I
people.
think, for our audience, who some of whom deal directly with communications and trying to get reporters to focus on innovations and uh, policy changes that really are changing things and making a positive change.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
perception often is they're hard to concisely pitch, number one. And our last session, I talked about the importance of not, when you're trying to interest someone in a story about civic progress or state progress,
yeah.
don't build a clock. Tell the person you're hoping to interest what time it is.
Right, right.
And the stories themselves by reporters are often, oh, isn't that boring? Because, they've been sort of schooled in to crack open, as you say, a scandal or find
Right,
misconduct of all kinds in the
right.
government.
Conflict
So
and drama is a lot. But I mean, let me give you the example of the homeless case, which what struck me was because this is also, the elevator pitch for these sort of stories. Everybody thinks this, but in fact, it's that. That's actually a basic form of journalism. So what I was hearing from a lot of homeless advocates, we're now talking about almost 10 years ago, was actually homelessness is declining. And there are cities which have been very effective in finding ways to address the problem because all of our reporting and kind of your lying eyes, very often, if you're in certain cities, told you something different. But the way I saw that story and the way we framed it was contrary to what you think, this is actually the case. Look, I did a story a few months ago on water in Los Angeles.
I love that
No,
story.
thanks. You're very
Can you
kind. But I
describe
mean,
it a little bit?
yeah. So I had done various, I was out in LA, based there for a little while, and I'd done various stories, some around the LA River, which is its own long, complicated thing. I'd done stuff around the fire in Altadena and so forth. But again, over a period of time, I kept hearing from people who dealt with water issues in California and city officials and others that actually LA is really good about water management, like exceptionally good. And again, it was sort of that news, which was not what I expected, that
Right.
I thought was the basis.
Counterintuitive.
Right. And so when I looked into it, what I discovered, because here you have a city whose reputation is for excess and, where everyone thinks of California as just sort of um, being at war with water, that not only has water usage in Los Angeles declined, but it's declined by a spectacular amount over the recent decades. And in fact, while the population of Southern California has skyrocketed during that same period, the total usage of water there has declined. So, the other thing we do as journalists is, well, how can that be? You sort of the yarn is in telling like what
How that
this
came to pass.
unexpected story, right? Like a mystery
Right.
almost. And I won't bore people with that here,
But
but
a, a project that we did at the Burns Center is of that ilk, in that sort of the conventional wisdom is that there's, especially in a state like Massachusetts where we work, there are so many different state benefits, all these programs, and like people are who don't really need them are, larding up on them. And what we had a group of students at Northeastern who were building AI mechanisms and systems that would help various state agencies be more efficient, do their work better.
Right.
And what all of them quickly found, no matter what agency they were helping, the students found that the problem was the opposite. The opposite was there were a lot of programs, but not people didn't know how to sign up for them or whether they were qualified. And so they concocted all of these wonderful apps that, allowed the agencies to better communicate and get the information they needed out to show that it wasn't an octopus of complexity, but something the people were qualified for and could sign up for.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think readers, voters, fellow citizens that are hungry, again, not exactly for good news, but just for a conversation around what is out there, how can we make things better, basically. And let's tackle this problem. There's a collective desire, I think, to whatever that problem is, to begin to address it. And that also is helped if you have stories that are examples of, some possibility. In this case, you're saying there's actually an abundance of opportunities. People just aren't aware of them. In California, I think the lesson was change is possible. Social, critical, even political change is possible around an issue like water usage. It's not it's not overnight. There's no magic bullet, but the same with homelessness in Houston. There are ways in which these problems can be addressed. And I think people are hungry for that. If I may say, I think, elections often we see them as negative events. People are reacting against what they feel is the failure of current administrations or governments to do what they want. What they're hungry for, I think, is the promise of something that is possible. And I think as journalists, that's part of our job too, to sort of articulate both the
Right.
problems and the ways in which they can be addressed.
Besides Headway, I mean, there's quite a bit of good news supporting that many editors, whether they're at broadcast stations or print publications, are interested in being pitched those kinds of stories. And that, my main evidence besides Headway is, the excellent writer Michael Lewis, after Trump's first election, wrote a book called The Fifth Risk that was great. And it was a sad book in some ways. He was just picking out characters, very professional, long-serving, public officials who, whose expertise was being lost. But then, and that was a huge success, that book. And then he teamed up more recently with a group. He was able to pick the best reporters he knew of. Unfortunately, you and I were not among them, but he compiled another book called Who is Government?
Yes.
And, this one it had a different focus. It focused on all the people doing critical and necessary work. And it was, it wasn't a polemic, but it sure provided a lot of good arguments against DOGE, the idea that you could just peremptorily, fire whole departments. So, there are more places I'm talking to the audience now, who really do want to hear your stories. And, from what Michael has told you so far, it's often a good time to try to get reporters' attention on something that you may be working on is if the problem part has been getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Because that's called thinking of something that's off the news. The news has been covering a spike in homelessness, but of interesting work to combat that you're doing, or in healthcare, same thing. If you can, sort of address something that's been in the news a lot, but tailor the idea to your work, that's a good way to get attention, to grab the attention of journalists.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I also think, sorry, everybody, I have a little cold today. I also think that, there are narratives, there are people who often drive stories, who are themselves good stories. In the case of homelessness, let's say, that traditionally are people who've fallen into homelessness or who are victims of homelessness or of the condition of homelessness. We did stories around business owners near encampments and so forth. Those stories are sort of catnip to newspapers. There are, however, and I came across many of them in doing various stories around homelessness, stories about people who have moved the dial. The and those are great stories. They just and that as you say, that counterpoint is also kind of catnip. The complication, I think, is that life is really complicated in general when we're talking about big social, political, civic problems, and they can't always be reduced to the sort of forms in which journalism tends to operate. And so the trick is not just interesting the journalist in, an angle of the story, but in trying to help explain these complicated systems uh, in which this person or this condition operates. Even in my saying it now sounds complicated, but that's sort of the trick, right? That what you want to do is get beyond the you know the easy issue
Right.
and get to something more, because you want to give people hope, but you also want to give them some understanding of the problems themselves, so so we can have a good public conversation around them.
Right.
Bureaucracy, you said how complicated it is around a lot of these programs because of all of, I assume, just the bureaucratic complexities around it. That is an issue, but if you look now at sort of the abundance agenda, this sort of moderate Democrat plan now to reframe the Democratic Party as a party of abundance, in other words, that wants to get things done. That's kind of a perfect illustration, at least, of the
Mhm.
ambition to change the conversation, as opposed to they suck and everything they're doing.
Right.
We have a way of framing this. Once you unpack what
Well,
abundance is,
that
it's
also,
difficult.
don't you think? I mean, we're all audience, you and I
Yeah,
are working at a point where trust in, the news media and trust in government is literally at an all-time low, according
right.
to the last Reuters study. They study this every year. And, you know, that makes the responsibility of public officials to tell the stories of what their work is about and how it achieves results really important. Maybe I'm being a Pollyanna, but I think that could be one, important element of restoring trust in
Yes.
government.
Look, it's
And
the
I think
job
if
of
we're
convey.
not just covering scandal,
Right,
but
right,
interesting experiments all across
right.
our country, it's a way of cutting against the
Yeah.
bad feelings people have about journalism.
Yeah, but journalism has a responsibility too, right? I mean, we need to be this is not about it is a form of advocacy journalism, right? Because we're saying we believe homelessness, let's say, is a problem. And so we think trying to write about ways to fix it is a part of our mission. But what we're not saying is we believe this party or this we're not getting involved in a lot of this what is effectively the polarizing forms of journalism that I think add to the public cynicism. So we too, I think, need to part of the project of Headway is to not be a partisan um,
Right.
organization. The Times isn't anyway, but that's crucial to say here. It's this funny combo, right? Like we are saying there is something that needs to happen to make society better. Whereas most journalism is we're just telling you some scandal has happened because that's our job. You worry about it. We're saying something a little different, which is there is a desire, we participate in it to make society
Right.
better.
And I think you put your finger on it that people want to be hopeful. They yearn to be hopeful. And if all you're doing, I guess the press is doing, is delivering, all problem stories, it leaves the audience throwing up their hands and feeling defeated
Helpless.
and not wanting to read the
Yeah.
news, I think. So
Yeah.
that's all somewhat of a
Yeah.
danger.
Look, I think also the metabolism of journalism has changed so much in the last, 10, certainly 20 years. Now, it used to be you would pick up a newspaper, you were essentially being given a digest of the news once, and you could absorb it, have enough to sort of move through the day. Now it is the economy of news organizations to keep your attention 24 hours. The way to do that is to keep you in a state of alarm, basically.
Right.
So,
It
that
sells
that's the tension. Yeah.
right.
We
Yeah.
have a responsibility, therefore, I think, too.
And the connected awful truth is that argument and exaggeration are what people click on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're all fighting that as well.
Yeah.
But I think we should probably in a minute open it up to the audience questions. I mean, my
Happily.
goal in being one of the conveners of these talks is to give the audience of public officials and government workers just a taste of how journalists think. From my editing experience, because editors are the gateway and naysayer to what stories are covered, and how a correspondent and reporter like Michael, thinks about what stories interest him. So,
Happy to talk about it. And I think, Joe, you ran the New York Times for years, and so, you saw the widest possible perspective of approaches by, gifted reporters to what they were doing and editors too. So I'm just one of them.
right.
I
But I
think
couldn't invite the whole
right.
reporting
But I
staff.
just can speak for myself. Though
Right. And
I
me
will,
too.
yeah, well, okay, you have a wider ambit, but I will say that I think um, there was and there has been a receptiveness to a project like Headway within the Times as well as out, but also some confusion because it's not the regular template for what journalism is. So I'm happy to unpack that with everybody here today too, because I think that's crucial. Many reporters, is what I'm saying, have their own approaches, and and many of them are only looking to do certain kinds of stories.
Right. Eileen, I think we're probably ready for questions.
Outstanding, Jill. This is actually, you gave us a perfect segue with one of your last comments to our first question, Jill, which is, so you had mentioned that argument and exaggeration are what people click on. So our first comment, our first question in the Q&A is, um, how does journalism short circuit our thought and survival instincts? If it bleeds, it leads. Even if it's not a threat to us, it's sort of a constant trauma-inducing infotainment. So I'll let the two of you tackle
Yeah,
that
I mean,
one.
I feel deluged by this very phenomenon with just,
Yeah.
I'm in Boston, the local on television, the weather coverage. I mean, it's like, okay, we're maybe getting a snowstorm, but it's a 5 alarm emergency. And those correspondents, if it snows, will pick the most terrible part of the storm to report from because even weather, the way weather is reported is create a sense of danger and emergency because it glues people to the tube. And unfortunately, these have been long running and deep seated tendencies of the news media.
Yeah, I would add, by the way, so you mentioned, I've done I was an art critic. I write about architecture and I've written about cultural things. It's 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 much easier to get people's attention if you trash something. It's a similar idea. If you want to write something that's basically thoughtful or flattering, unless it's some crazy love letter, um, right? Uh, Most things in the world are not actually horrible or sublime. And so that's a part of the problem too. Journalism functions best at extremes, and readers are often attracted to extremes. Readers, television viewers, everybody. So
Right.
how do you get around this? This is tricky. How do you provide people with the space for what you may crave and need, but your body is telling you, I'm going to look at that really horrible headline or listen to that really horrible story. One of the ways to do it is just to try to report in an interesting way, to try to do, and that's complicated. It's harder than doing, than trashing something or that's the tension, I think, from our perspective. Um,
I think that's right.
Also from readers' perspectives too. You know, it's difficult to you seek out, I think we seek out things that are negative partly to protect ourselves, like somehow if we feel we know it, we have it under control. Um, and we're skeptical, journalists are, and the public is too, I think, at this point, anyway. So that if you get some other kind of story, you're often you're looking for the weak.
Can I believe it?
Exactly. Yeah. Which is where good reporting comes in. You have to anticipate that and be clear about what you do know and what you don't know, what's reliable and what's not, and so forth. It's tricky.
Great. Well, thank you for that. I just realized that I forgot to turn off the recording, so I'm going to go ahead and do
Okay.
that. Um, and